we're picking up farther behind than they were. So we left off the Mirror of Erised. I believe we discussed on Tuesday. Christmas comes, Harry gets some gifts. There are two important gifts. They're all important. There are two gifts that are important for the course of the novel. One is the flute that someone gives him. Who gives him that? I'll talk about that in a second. And two, the invisibility cloak, okay? That we don't know who gives him that. So why does Hagrid give Harry a flute?
I have no idea.
Didn't you say it was like completely...
Okay, so I did discuss it, yeah. Harry has never expressed any interest in music whatsoever. He's never suggested he could play any music, nor have we ever seen anything in the book that suggests Hagrid likes woodworking, or carving, or whittling, or music. Total simple plot device. It is just there so that it can be used later on because she needs a means to do something else, okay? The invisibility cloak. This is a little more important. But even this, it's still a plot device. It becomes very much more important later. By the way, I'm just going to throw this out there. There are going to be, or at least I'm going to point out what I think are some problems with her whole portrayal of an invisibility cloak later on, in terms of what is going to be said about them and such. Okay? So, the invisibility cloak comes with a note. Your father left this in my possession before he died. Time it was returned to you. Use it well. Two important things about that. I think I discussed these the other day. One is what?
It's his father's cloak.
He has something that belonged to his father. I'm not wearing it now because I bent it weightlifting a couple of years ago. I've got a ring that belonged to my grandfather. It's over 100 years old. It is, in that sense, an heirloom. Okay? It will get passed down, assuming I ever get it repaired, to one of my sons probably. Okay? Does he have anything else that belonged to his father? Not at all. Has he seen a picture of his father? No. He knows, other than what Hagrid told him back in the Keeper of the Keys chapter, he knows nothing about his parents. Okay? The other thing, use it well. What does that imply? Louder? Have fun. I don't know if you've ever been to a castle in England. I've been to a few. Some of them are horrible. They've been gutted on the inside and redone by like 1950s interior decorators who ought to be strung up and shot. Others are absolutely medieval gorgeous. Okay? Sorry, I probably shouldn't say such violent things, but in my opinion. Hogwarts is supposed to be pretty cool. You know, stairways move on their own and all that kind of stuff. You give an 11-year-old kid carte blanche. Have at it. Do what you want, okay? So Harry does. What have they already discovered about... Trying to think how to put this. I didn't talk about this with my first class. What do they know about what Hagrid's secret job was for Dumbledore? Or put it another way, what do they know is at Hogwarts? The Philosopher, let's call it by its real name. The Philosopher's Stone, okay? And they know Hagrid had something to do with that, okay? So, what have they been looking for information about? Nicholas Flamel, right? Because he has something to do with the Sorcerer's Stone. They don't know what yet. I mean, Hagrid let that slip after he, had one too many, which tells us, Hagrid maybe drinks a little bit too much. Little, I think, important tidbit, and I don't think I got to this in this class Tuesday. Nicholas Flamel's a real person. He really lived, okay? As did his wife, Perenelle. They were 16th century alchemists. So they were really involved in alchemy. He wasn't 665, however, and she wasn't 658, which is the ages we're going to find out they are. So, here he goes off trying first to the library to try to find books about Nicholas Flamel. Noises kind of chase him out. And it's kind of interesting. It's not explicitly stated this way, but it's like the noises are like sheepdogs kind of corralling him, pointing him to a certain room or place. Page 207. He goes into this room. Okay, he overhears Snape and Filch. He backs away from them. He goes into this room, empty classroom. Okay, and he sees this big mirror up against the wall. The room was empty. He turns slowly to face the mirror. Page 208. This is, I think, one of the most important passages in the first 4 books. There's going to be a connection, I think, I could be wrong, between the Mirror of Erised and something Harry sees in book 4. There's something else I didn't point out to my first class. This is why I always get behind in this one. So, he looks in the mirror. Okay? The bottom of the mirror, bottom of 207, has written on it, carved around the top, Erised stra eru oit ube kavru oit unwozi. Harry has no clue what that means. He looks in the mirror. What do mirrors do? They show you yourself. And there he was reflected in it. White and scared looking. Why is he scared? Snape and Filch. Okay? And there reflected behind him were at least 10 others. Or is that why he's scared? So, he sees himself and all these people behind him. Where is he, though? He's in an empty room. So, he sees all these 10 others behind him. And he immediately turns around. Are there suddenly 10 people there? No, there aren't. Still no one was there. And then Harry thinks, are they all invisible too? He still has the invisibility cloak on. When Harry looks at himself, like his arm like this, under the invisibility cloak, does he see his arm? No. If he lifts the invisibility cloak up to look at his arm under it, he'll see his arm. If he looks through the invisibility cloak to his arm, he doesn't see it. So he thinks, logically. It's one of the only times in the book Harry thinks logically. Were they all invisible too? Was he in fact in a room full of invisible people? And this mirror's trick was that it reflected them, invisible or not. Rowling has Harry think that question, but a response, an answer, is never given. And not even what Dumbledore tells Harry in a few pages about the mirror is an answer to the question. I don't think. I think Rowling's throwing that question out because she wants her readers to think. Are there invisible people around Harry at this point? Okay? So he looks in the mirror again. A woman standing right behind his reflection was smiling at him and waving. So when he initially looks, he sees himself and around at least 10 other people. He's not focused on any specific one. Now he is. Okay? And the woman is smiling and waving. What does that imply?
She knows him.
Okay, what else?
She can see him.
She can see, what else? Both of those are true. Why this? Is it this kind of thing or is it like I'm here. He reached out. If she were there, he should be able to touch her. Okay? Their reflections were so close together, but he felt only air. She and the others existed only in the mirror. This is according to Harry's thinking. All right? She is a very pretty woman. She had dark red hair. Her eyes are just like mine, Harry thinks. Same shape. But then he noticed that she was crying. Smiling, but crying at the same time. Why is the then important? What kind of adverb is then? It's opposed to now. Because now means what? Now, then means passage of time. Okay? So when he first notices her, what does he see about her? She's smiling and waving. Now, she's not smiling. She's not waving. She's smiling and crying. So what has happened? The question kind of gives it away. Is time passing in the mirror? He sees her. She's smiling and waving, and then she isn't waving. Yes, time has passed. That is, we are now in a new present for whatever he's seeing, whether it's behind him or in the mirror. All right? Tall, thin, black-haired man standing next to her puts his arm around her. Okay? Present, moving into the future, as it were. So when he has his arm around her, he's no longer putting it. Time has passed. When he first sees him, Harry sees him just standing there, and then he does this. Why does the man standing next to her put his arm around her? Okay, which is telling us what about those images in the mirror?
That they're close to each other?
Okay, well, they're close physically, obviously.
Well, I mean, like.
Close emotionally, romantically. What else? You're missing the obvious one. It's probably so obvious that's why you're missing it.
That they have emotions.
Keep going.
They're alive?
They're reacting to what?
Seeing Harry?
They're reacting to seeing Harry and, more importantly in one sense,
Harry seeing them?
yes. So they are aware of Harry seeing them. Does Harry understand all this? No. Okay. So if they're aware and they're responding to seeing Harry, what are they?
Ghosts?
Dumbledore's going to give kind of an answer, but it's not really an answer. Dumbledore's going to tell you what the mirror shows you. And I'm going to ask after we finish this little part and talk about the Dumbledore part. I'll go ahead and ask it now. Does Dumbledore, in your opinions, does Dumbledore know everything about how the mirror works? Okay, so he puts his arm around her. He wears glasses. His hair is very untidy. It sticks up at the back just like Harry's. What are we being told? Mom, Dad, her eyes are just like his. His hair is just like Harry's. Has Harry ever seen his parents before? That he can remember. He obviously did when he was a baby. Okay? They just look at him, smiling. Notice, the implication is, she is no longer crying. And slowly, Harry looks into the faces of other people in the mirror and saw other pairs of green eyes and other noses like his, and other hair like his, and other knobby knees like his. The potters smiled and waved at Harry. Is that the two immediately behind Harry? Or is that all of them? We're not told. Rowling, as far as I know, and I've never had anything to do with Pottermore, which is no longer around, I believe, Rowling never addresses this question. Why are James and Harry the last Potters? Why do we never hear anything about James's, other than briefly and obliquely in book 5? Hear anything about James's parents? Mr. and Mrs. Potter, who spawned James, because we don't even know their names. Okay? We find out they're good people, they're nice people, they take in a runaway. Okay? We'll talk about that when we get to it. But we don't know anything else. It's like James is the last of his line until Harry's born. And then Harry's the last of the Potters until Harry Potter and the Cursed Book that never should have been written, play that never should have been performed. We find out more. So, he's now so close to the mirror that his nose was nearly touching it, that of his reflection. Why, didn't mention this in my first class, why doesn't Harry touch the mirror? Anybody know anything about a story that involves a mirror? That if you get too close to it,
You fall in it. Alice in Wonderland.
through the looking glass. Okay? Alice in Wonderland is Alice goes down the rabbit hole.
The Looking Glass is
Okay? Looking glass, she goes through the mirror. Okay? About the same time that Lewis Carroll wrote that, a friend of his, a guy named George MacDonald, wrote a book where a guy also goes through a mirror. We're going to have in a book in here, okay, we're going to have Harry go into a book and learn some things. All right? So, it's the next book, in fact. So, he doesn't quite touch the mirror because, that plays upon these literary tropes and ideas of falling in and what might be on the other side. But Harry does press his hands. Why? The Potter smiled and waved at Harry, and he stared hungrily back at them. His hands pressed flat against the glass as though he was hoping to fall right through and reach them. What is that telling us?
He wants to go be with them.
He wants to be with them. Dumbledore is going to tell us how the mirror works. So, what does that mean Harry wants to be with them? He wants to be with his family, his real family, not his Dursley family, because they're horrible, rotten people. You get the impression that if Harry could practice magic outside school and he knew how to do the Avada Kedavra curse, he might just pull one on the Dursleys. He had a powerful kind of ache inside of him, half joy, half terrible sadness. What's the half joy? What causes the half joy?
He knows what his parents look like.
He sees his parents for the first time that he can make sense of now. What's the half sadness?
They're not actually there. And he realizes they're not actually there.
Is it that they're not actually there? I mean, I'm going to pick apart your sentence for a moment. I mean, in one sense, you're entirely correct. And yet, they respond to what Harry does. So are they not actually there? He can't be with them. Why not? Where are all of them? In the mirror. And how do you get in the mirror? Is there a secret code, punch in your numbers? Where are they?
They're dead.
They're dead. So how can Harry be with them? He can become unliving. If he's dead, he'll, so to speak, be with them. So, he stands there, we don't know how long, but he hears a noise and he runs. He tells Ron. The next night, he and Ron go back. Okay? Harry says, see? Ron, 210. I can't see anything. Look at them. Loads of them. Harry's looking in. He sees all of his family. Ron's not standing right in front of the mirror. He's standing just off to the side. But if there's a mirror, say this door, and all of you guys, you can see the mirror, what would you see? You'd see what's over here because of how the angle of light is. But you'd still see something. Harry and Ron are standing close enough that Ron should be able to see Harry in the mirror and the people surrounding him. Ron doesn't. Okay? Harry, there's loads of, I can only see you. Look at it properly. Meaning, don't stand diagonally to it, stand in front of it. What does Ron see? Look at me. Harry, you see your family all around you? Hell no. Why not?
Because Ron doesn't want to be lumped in with his family. He wants to be apart from them.
He's got 5 older brothers. That is, he has 5 older models that he has to live up to. All right? I'm alone. But I'm different. I'm older. I'm head boy. Harry, what? It's a little kind of subtext thing that gets played out later on. There's this idea that Harry, he doesn't think that highly of Ron. Okay? I am. And I'm wearing the badge like Bill used to. And I'm holding a house cup and the Quidditch cup. I'm Quidditch captain. Harry's like, well, it must be faulty. Bang it on the side. Do you think this mirror shows the future? What's Ron thinking? Please, if there's something up there, please let it show the future. Why? Because the implication is none of his brothers have been Quidditch captain. We know 2 of his brothers play Quidditch. I don't think we ever hear if Charlie did, or Bill did, or Percy did. Percy, hell no.
I think it's implied somewhere in the books that Charlie also played.
That Charlie did? Okay. So, Harry, how can the mirror tell the future? All my family are dead. Again, Harry's not the brightest bulb. Because at some point in the future, hopefully one wishes a long time in the future, Harry will also what? Become dead. Okay? Presupposing that there is some part of you that goes on after the body dies. All right? Let me have another look. You had it all to yourself last night. Give me more time. You're only holding the Quidditch cup. What's interesting about that? I want to see my parents. Don't push me. They hear a noise out in the corridor. They run. Okay? Why does Harry say you only hold the house cup? It's like a big deal. What is that for Ron?
That's his deepest desire. That's what he wants more than anything.
Because what does that convey? What does that give him?
He's special.
He's special. What else?
Attention?
Attention.
He's done something that his brothers have never done.
And fame. Does Harry look for fame? No. What did Dumbledore tell us when he was talking to McGonagall when he left the note? He'll be famous for nothing he can remember. Everybody's going to know him. Okay? So, 3rd night, Harry goes back. There are his mother and father smiling at him again as one of his grandfathers nodding. Harry sinks down to sit, and he hears a noise in the back. So back again, Harry. He turns, and there's Dumbledore sitting on a desk by the wall. Harry must have walked straight past him. I didn't see you. Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you. So, Harry walks in. Does he take off the invisibility cloak when he sits down in front of the mirror? We're not told he does. Question. How can Dumbledore see him?
Do you think he has some kind of aura or something that Dumbledore can sense? Does that sound like?
I mean, well, but that,
I think it's a problem in the writing.
You could have heard him opening the door.
How would
That's possible.
he wouldn't have known it was Harry though?
Well, but he knows that yeah.
Technically, could he have had the Marauders map? Because it was in Filch's office and then the other
Possibly, but we don't know that yet.
I think at this point, Fred and George already have that.
Yeah, I think that's true. So, it's not answered, and it is a problem, okay? Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you. What does he mean by that? When you're nearsighted, what can you see? Only what's right here, okay? Which means everything out there is unimportant. That's his way of telling Harry what? Look around. Look diagonally, Be aware, all right? So, says Dumbledore, you, like hundreds before you, have discovered the delights of the Mirror of Erised. I didn't know it was called that. But I expect you realize by now what it does. What's Dumbledore doing? He's the headmaster. He's teaching. He's asking questions. Oh, it shows me my family? And it showed your friend Ron himself as head boy. How did you know? I don't need a cloak to become invisible. What did Dumbledore just tell us?
He was watching them.
He was there the night before, and he was invisible. And he doesn't need a cloak.
Is that a spell?
Say that
Is
again?
there like a visibility spell that he can use?
She never addresses one that I can remember in all 7 books. It also implies he was there the first night. Okay? Can you think of what the Mirror of Erised shows us all? That is, not you specifically, not Ron specifically. He's asking Harry to use some logical thinking. Make a deduction. This is what it shows you. This is what it shows Ron. What is the common thread? Harry doesn't have a clue. Let me explain. Happiest man on earth would be able to use the Mirror of Erised like a normal mirror. That is, he would look into it and see himself exactly as he is. Does that help? Does it help, Harry? Not a clue. Okay? I had this word written up in here the other day. Greek apatheia. It is not the modern apathetic. Apathetic means you don't give a damn. Apatheia means you have no feeling. You have no desire. You have no want. You have no passion. Okay? So, happiest man in the world would look in it and it would be what? It would just show him himself as he is. Why? Because Dumbledore is saying that the happiest man on earth is the happiest man who looks in it would be totally content. Totally at peace. No wants, no desires, no needs, etc. That help? Shows us what we want, whatever we want? Yes and no. That's Dumbledore being nice. It's no. It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of our hearts. Page 207. Erised stra eru oit ube kavru oit anwosi. What does that mean? Anybody know? I show you not your face, but your heart's desire. Reverse the letters. It's just that sentence written backwards.
Here's an answer from understood.org.
Oh, shut up, Siri. Go away. So, shows us our deepest, most desire of our hearts. He says, it shows you what? It shows you surrounded by your family. You who have never known your family. Ronald Weasley, who's always been overshadowed by his brothers, he sees what? He sees himself standing alone, the best of them all. But the mirror doesn't give knowledge or truth. Men have wasted away in front of it, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible. Does he say that it doesn't show what is real or possible? No, he says it doesn't give us knowledge and it doesn't give us truth. So I'm going to pose a question. You don't have to answer it until we get to the end of book 4. What does Harry see? What is Harry seeing in the mirror? Beyond, as Dumbledore describes it, his family who he has never known before. So, Dumbledore finishes the little teaching lesson by saying what? Don't go looking for it again. And if you ever do run across it, you will now be prepared. It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Remember that. I think there's a tie-in between that statement and a statement Dumbledore will make, a final statement Dumbledore will make to Harry. Ooh, I can't say that. I just gave it away. Never mind. Don't want to give away something big from... Yeah, I can't. Nicholas Flamel, next chapter. Skipping right along. They run into Neville. Neville tells him, pages 217 and following, Draco's been picking on him. Okay? And he says, Neville makes a comment that he's not brave enough to be in Gryffindor. Malfoy's already shown him that. And Harry pulls out a chocolate frog card, gives it to Neville. Neville opens it as Harry saying, you're worth 12 of Malfoy. Sorting hat puts you in Gryffindor. There has to be a reason for that. He unwraps the frog, takes the chocolate, gives the card to Harry. And Harry finally realizes. Dumbledore again. He was the first one I ever. On the train, when Ron gives him a chocolate frog card, Harry opens it. He reads about Dumbledore. And there we have it. Page 219. Okay? Told you I'd read the name. Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the Dark Wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner, Nicholas Flamel. Something else I didn't point out to my first class. The battle against Grindelwald in 1945. Why 1945?
That's the end of World War II.
End of World War II. Okay? Grindelwald is very Hitlerian, very Nietzschean. Okay, I'm going to talk about Nietzsche in just a minute. So, Hermione says, stop, runs off to her room, gets a book, and she talks about alchemy. She reads about alchemy, top of 220. The source, Philosopher's Stone, she's a real word, etc. Says the only known source Philosopher's Stone currently in existence belongs to Flamel, and he just celebrated his 665th birthday last year. He enjoys a quiet life with his wife, Perenelle, who is 658. Okay? Next Quidditch match. Snape is refereeing. Okay? Skip a bunch. Harry follows Quirrell. Not going to say anything else about that. Next chapter, Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. What is the significance for Norbert, for this dragon? None. Well, there's a little tie-in with Book 4 in terms of Norwegian Ridgeback dragons. That's it. The chapter is important for what event?
Going into the Forbidden Forest.
Or the punishment for setting up a midnight duel at the top of the astronomy tower. Harry, Hermione, Neville, Malfoy get caught. Why is Neville there?
He was trying to stop Harry, Hermione, and Ron.
He's trying to stop Harry, Hermione, and Ron. Okay? They get caught. Harry's invisibility cloak gets left behind in the astronomy tower and taken. The punishment, because they get caught by McGonagall, the punishment is what? It's twofold. Part of it's major, part of it's just not. 50 points from Gryffindor. So 50 points for the House Cup competition gets taken away. So you go and you look at those jars with the beans or whatever they are in it, and 50 beans are taken away. What's the important punishment?
They have to go to the Forbidden Forest.
Say that again?
Detention. They have to go to the Forbidden Forest.
Detention. Detention's normally held where? In a classroom. How did you put it? I think you said they get to go in the Forbidden Forest.
I would want to go in.
Okay, yeah, exactly. They get to go in the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid. Okay? Parallel between this book and book 7. There's a detention in book 7, and somebody gets sent into the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid, right? It's pretty important parallel. So, what are they doing in the Forbidden Forest? Why are they going in there? Does Hagrid just want to, take him in there and scare him like one of the Friday the 13th movies? No. What is wrong in the Forbidden Forest? A unicorn has been wounded. Hagrid has noticed blood. Silvery stuff. So he says, we're going to go find the wounded unicorn. The implication is, put it out of its misery. Okay? So you have Harry, Hermione, Neville, Malfoy, Hagrid, and what else? Fang, Hagrid's boarhound. Malfoy says, I want to go with Fang. I don't care who, I want to be a Fang. Hagrid tells him it's coward, but okay. So how does Hagrid divide them up? Malfoy, Neville, Fang. Good idea? No. Why does that make sense at the beginning, though? Hagrid. He's not aware of what's been going on. Okay? So they get divided up and go off. So you have Harry, Hermione, Hagrid. They run into some centaurs. Ronan first, all right? And what does page 253 and following? Kind of words. What kind of conversation does Hagrid have with Ronan and then Bane? Hagrid asks, have you seen anything?
They like keep talking about about Mars. And
Mars.
Hagrid is just done with it and just wants to know if they know anything about the universe.
Ronan, 253. When Hagrid says, have you seen anything? Anything unusual? Mars is bright tonight. Yep. Anything unusual? Bit nearer home. Not, millions of miles away. Forest hides many secrets. There's a lot of unusual stuff. Hagrid, come on. Bane jumps in. Okay, Ronan is a Celtic god, by the way. The name is a Celtic god. Bane is what? Durin's Bane. Killer. The name means killer. Okay? So, Bane walks over. Mars is bright. And Hagrid's like, enough with the food. They finally leave. They see red sparks off in the distance. Okay? And Hagrid goes off, gets Malfoy and Neville and Fang. Is it significant they see red sparks? What should that tell them?
The green was if they found the unicorn and the red was if there was danger, right?
Yep, I completely forgot about that. I was asking a different question. Yep, that's right. Was there danger? What was it?
Malfoy scared Neville.
So why does Neville shoot off red sparks?
Because he's scared.
Because he's scared. And anything scares Neville. So, Hagrid divides them up again. Now Harry, and Malfoy go off. Why?
Because Hagrid said he'll have a harder time scaring you.
Okay. So, Harry, Malfoy, Fang go off. 255. They start to follow more of the silver blood stuff. And we're told towards the bottom of the page, the paragraph that begins, so Harry set off. He thinks the blood seemed to be thicker. The poor creature had been thrashing around in pain close by. He could see it clearing ahead and through the tangled branches of an ancient oak. And he says, "Look!" And he puts his arm out. Why?
To stop Malfoy from...
To stop Malfoy. In Madame Malcolm's robe shop, what does Harry do when Malfoy insults Hagrid? He comes to Hagrid's defense. He says, "I think he's great." On the train, what does Harry do when Malfoy insults Ron? He comes to Ron's defense. He protects him in that sense, okay? He actually stands up and is ready to fight Crabbe and Goyle and Malfoy. In the flying lesson, he comes to Neville's defense and gets the remembrall for him, all right? What do we see Harry do repeatedly? I'm going to beat this horse till there's nothing left on it, till we get to the end of book 7. Harry repeatedly defends those who are, in some sense, Ron not as much, defenseless. Either he stands up for someone who's not there to defend themselves, or he defends someone who is weaker than him. And he even does it at times when Harry's got a pretty good idea those he's going up against are going to beat the living daylights out of him, okay? What's Harry's relationship with Malfoy?
It's pretty bad. They kind of hate each other.
He hates his guts. To say it's pretty bad is a...
Understatement.
Yeah, thank you. Word I couldn't think of. And they see the unicorn, and it's dead. And then Harry sees something else, and his head feels like it is going to explode. But it's not like a migraine, because what is the source of the pain? It's right there, okay? A unicorn runs in, 256. Are you all right? Harry, yes. What was that? You're the Potter boy. How does Firenze know Harry is the Potter boy? Does he have a shirt that says Potter boy?
He's got a scar.
No, but he has a scar. Okay? Tells him his name. Says, "Can you ride?" Gets down. Harry gets on Firenze's back. Bane comes in. Notice, Bane thundered. Why is Bane so angry?
Because, like, he thinks that letting him ride on his back is, like, demeaning.
Are you a common mule? He asks him. You know. Do you realize who this is? That's kind of important. Because what does that imply? This is somebody really important. What have you been telling him? Bane asks. Why does he ask that question?
Because they obviously know something from looking at the stars in the sky, and they don't want to tell anyone.
The implication is we look at the stars, they look at the planets, they read the signs. What branch of science is this? Astrology, okay? But what do they not do with that knowledge?
They don't share it, they keep to themselves.
Exactly, okay? They don't write the horoscopes for the Daily Prophet, in other words, okay? Remember, friends, we are sworn not to set ourselves against the heavens. Have we not read what is to come in the movements of the planets? Notice, that's implying that there is this predetermined fate, okay? Ronan said, I'm sure he thought he's acting for the best. Firenze bellows back at Bane. Do you not see that unicorn? Do you not understand why it was killed? Harry doesn't. He doesn't have a clue. Or have the planets not let you in on that secret? And then Firenze says, I set myself against what is lurking in this forest, Bane. Yes, with humans alongside me if I must. What does that mean? Yes, with humans alongside me if I must. What is that implying about the relationship between centaurs and humans?
They don't like it.
They're not friendly. This is kind of a version of a Middle East notion. Became kind of common in America after the Operation Desert Storm 1991, and then common again during the Iraq War. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That is, we will side with those who are the enemies of our enemies. Okay? And before Desert Storm, from about 1981 to 88, I think it was, the United States was a big military supplier for Saddam Hussein. Why? Because Hussein was the sworn enemy of Iran, which was an enemy of the United States because of their capturing our embassy and hostages for 444 days. Enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay? Then what happened? The United States goes to war against Iraq, and guess what? We didn't completely ally with Iran, but Iran offered us some help. Enemy of my enemy is my friend. We supplied when the Soviet Union went into Afghanistan. Guess who we gave arms and weapons to? I almost said Obi-Wan Kenobi. Wrong one. Osama bin Laden. Why? Enemy of our enemy. He led the Mujahideen against the Soviets. They were the big enemy. 9/11, Soviet Union helped us against Osama bin Laden. Okay? In other words, your enemies are simply, who you're at war with right now, kind of a thing. So, he's saying, I'm going to ally myself with humans. Why? Because that thing that's out there in the forest, that should unite us against it. It is a more dangerous threat. So, Harry, golly gee, Mr. Bain, Mr. Ferenz, why is Bain so angry? He doesn't have a clue what's going on. And what was that thing? And what does Bain do? Does he answer the question directly? No. He's a teacher at heart. He's actually going to become a teacher. Do you know what unicorn blood is used for, Harry? No. He says we've only used the horn and tail in potions. Now, unicorn tail can grow back. Unicorn horn, you cut it off, it's not going to grow back. All right? He says that's because it's a monstrous thing to slay a unicorn. You can't go ask for a transfusion, a blood sample from unicorns. He says, only one who has nothing to lose, everything to gain, would commit such a crime. The blood of a unicorn will keep you alive, even if you're an inch from death, but at a terrible price. You have slain something pure and defenseless to save yourself, and you will have but a half-life, a cursed life, from the moment the blood touches your lips. So, unicorn blood will keep you alive, but what will become of your life? You'll be cursed. Notice, you use unicorn blood, and how do you get that? You have to kill a unicorn. You do it for what? To save yourself. This is not sacrifice. Sacrifice, well, let me rephrase that. It's not self-sacrifice. When you sacrifice yourself, you're doing that for what? To save somebody else. This is killing something else to save you. So, Harry just stares at the back of Ferenz's head. But who'd be that desperate? I mean, if you're going to be cursed forever, death's better, isn't it? What's Harry telling us? There are things that are worse than death. Death isn't the ultimate evil, so to speak. All right? Ferenz, you're right, Harry. It is. Unless you need something that'll keep you alive just long enough until you can drink something that'll bring you fully back to strength and power. Something that will mean you can never die. Mr. Potter, do you know what is hidden at the school at this very moment? The Philosopher's Stone. The elixir of life. Can you notice? They're all Socratic questions. Harry has the knowledge inside. It just has to be dug out. Can you think of nobody who has waited many years to return to power, who has clung to life, awaiting their chance? It was as though, I find this sentence very interesting. It was as though an iron fist had clenched suddenly around Harry's heart. Why is it like a smack upside the head? The proverbial, I could have had a V8 commercial where the light bulb goes off. Why is it like an iron fist squeezing his heart?
Because he realizes that it's someone he thought was dead and someone he's been told from the moment he entered the wizarding world that he had beaten and was horrible.
But he's never been told he's been dead. Hagrid says he's fled. He hopes he'll never come back to power, but he thinks he's just biding his time. Okay? But why his heart? What's the heart the source of, so to speak? Love. Passion. Okay? Sounds like a vacuum cleaner somewhere. Anyways, Harry makes the connection. Voldemort is after the stone. Okay? Firenze says, when Hagrid and the others come back, the planets have been read wrongly before, even now by centaurs. I hope this is one of those times. Notice how he puts that. The planets have been read wrongly. Notice, the planets aren't wrong. The stars aren't wrong. It is our interpretations of them that have been wrong before. Okay? So, Harry, Hermione go back to the common room. They see Ron. Harry can't sit down. He's pacing back and forth. Snape wants the stone for Voldemort because he thinks Snape is the one after the stone. This will bring Voldemort back. All I've got to do now is wait for Snape to steal the stone. Then Voldemort will be able to come and finish me off. Well, I suppose Bane will be happy. Why does Harry say Voldemort will be able to come and finish me off?
Because Harry was the only person Voldemort couldn't heal.
True. Does Harry know that? McGonagall tells us that when she's talking to Dumbledore in the second chapter, or opening chapter. But does Harry know that? We're not sure. Harry knows that Voldemort did what? Killed his parents and tried to kill him. Okay? What else does Hagrid say? That's it. Harry, I think, asked, why did he try to kill me? And I think Hagrid, I'm pretty sure Harry asked that, and Hagrid says, trying to make a clean sweep of it. That is, he killed your parents, he wanted to kill you too. And the implication is like, no witnesses. Okay? Even though Harry's just a baby at the point. We're not told that Harry knows Voldemort is specifically after him. That's going to come up in just a few minutes. So, through the trap door, Harry, Ron, Hermione decide they're going to have to go after the stone. Hagrid mentions how to get past Fluffy after he's, had a few drinks. Okay, just a bit of music to calm the savage beast, right? Harry, Ron, and Hermione try to talk to Dumbledore. McGonagall says he's not here. He's been called away to London to the Ministry of Magic. They're thinking that's it. Voldemort's going to go tonight. They run into Snape. Snape kicks them out of the castle. Okay. And then that evening, Harry tells them 270. He says, I'm going into the trapdoor tonight. How do they know about the trapdoor?
When they were going to the midnight duel, they found it.
They found it, and they found Fluffy. And who Who noticed the trapdoor?
Hermione.
Hermione. Why? Because Harry and Ron aren't that perceptive, let's just say. So, Hermione says, 270, middle of the page, Harry, you can't. You'll be expelled. For Hermione, what is more important than anything? School, education, knowledge, learning. Harry, so what? Don't you understand? If Snape gets hold of the stone, Voldemort's coming back. Haven't you heard what it was like when he was trying to take over? Has Harry heard what it was like when Voldemort was trying to take over before? And if he has, where has he heard that? That we're privy to? Has he had a history of magic course where, it's been talked about? Nope. Has Hagrid pulled him aside, or McGonagall pulled him aside, or anybody pulled him aside and said, oh, Harry, you should really know what it was like when Voldemort was trying to rise to power before? Nope. Has he picked up and read Hogwarts, a history, or a history of magic? Seemingly not, because he cheats from Hermione in every book. Okay? So how does he know what that's like? There won't be any Hogwarts to get expelled from. He'll flatten it or turn it into a school for the dark arts. Losing points doesn't matter anymore, don't you see? Or can't you see? Do you think he'll leave you and your families alone if Gryffindor wins the House Cup? Like, oh darn, I can't do that now because Gryffindor has the House Cup. If I get caught before I can get to the stone, well, I'll have to go back to the Dursleys, assuming Hermione's right and he gets expelled, and wait for Voldemort to find me there. Again, why does he assume Voldemort is coming after him? We've not been told that Harry knows that yet. I think it's a flaw in the writing. She's getting a little bit ahead of herself. When she writes this one, first one written, she doesn't have all the other books fleshed out yet. She's got notes, but not completed. And then he says, it's only dying a bit later than I would have. Than he would have when? 11 years ago? 10 years ago? 10 and a half years ago at this point? And then he says the thing to me that is totally inexplicable. Because I'm never going over to the dark side. What? It's like she's channeling Darth Vader. No, Harry, join me and we will rule the wizarding. Where has Harry ever been asked to join the dark side? I think there might be one little clue. But to me, it's not satisfactory.
When Malfoy asked him.
On the train, what does Malfoy say? I can help you make friends with the right sort. And then he says what? He talks about Harry's parents. You'll go the way of your parents. They didn't know what was best for them. He seems to imply there that Harry's parents chose poorly in opposing Voldemort. Is Voldemort mentioned in that scene? Nope. Is the quote-unquote dark side mentioned? Nope. Okay? But this implies Harry has been tempted somehow to go over to the dark side. Nothing so far in the book has given us that indication. Okay? So he says, I'm going through. I'll use invisibility cloak. Ron asks, will it cover all three of us? Harry, all three of us? You don't think we'd let you go alone? And then Hermione says, how do you think you'd get to the stone without us? Wow. Harry, you'll lose. You'll fail. You'll die if you don't have us. That is not a rousing endorsement and pep talk before he goes to take on the Dark Wizard, so to speak. Okay? Harry, but if we get caught, you'll be expelled too. Hermione, no, we won't. Not if I can help it. Flitwick told me in secret I got 112% on NSGAM. They're not throwing me out after. So you two might get thrown out because you know Harry and Ron have never gotten 112. So they go through the trap door. 7 obstacles or challenges or tests to get through. What's first? Fluffy, they now know the source of that. By the way, what is Fluffy really? I don't mean within the book. Within the real world's history of ideas.
He's like that dog that guards hell.
Cerberus, the guardian of hell, the three-headed dog, okay? Argus Filch, by the way, the name Argus, there is a creature of 1,000 eyes named it Argus. What is filch? It's a verb. What does it mean to filch something? Like if I were to walk by and kind of suddenly just pick this up and keep going.
Steal?
It's theft. It's stealing. What does Filch do? He takes things from students. Somebody, I don't know, yeah, it was this class, mentioned the Marauder's map that Fred and George have. How did they get it? They filched it from Filch, who had taken it years before from another student, okay? So, would Harry have made it through this? Yes. Why? Because Hermione mentions the trapdoor. Hagrid tells him you need to play music to get past Fluffy. And golly gee, Harry has a flute that he can blow notes on. They fall through the trapdoor. How far do they fall? We're told it's quite a distance. How do we know? Because when they look up from where they land to where the light is for the square opening of the trapdoor, it's the size of a postage stamp. That's pretty far. You're talking probably 50, 60, maybe 100 feet. And they land in what? Devil's snare. Who saves them? Hermione. Okay. So you have Hagrid with Fluffy. Sprout does the devil's snare. They next have to get the keys. That's Harry's, thing. Gets on a broom, snatches the key. That's Flitwick. Chess set. Lo and behold, Ron is useful. What has Ron just kind of, accidentally been attempting to teach Harry all year long? How to play wizarding chess, okay? Notice, what must Ron do?
He has to sacrifice himself.
He has to sacrifice himself.
Sacrifice himself.
What kind of sacrifice is this?
Self-sacrifice.
Okay, yeah. What else? Does Ron know he's going to get up? No. They don't know if this is a real self-sacrifice, okay? Ron does. They get across the chessboard. They see the knocked out troll. Then they have the 3 potions. What kind of test is this really? It's not potions. It's logic because it's a riddle. Okay. So here he can get through this. He would have died here. He could get through this. He'd have died here. He can get through this because, or this one, he'd have died again because Harry never would have gotten this on his own. Okay, but Hermione has to drink it first, and then Harry goes through. If I remember correctly, or do I have that backwards? But he gets through. What's the final test? If you should ever come across it again, what has Dumbledore just done? He set up, where is it? This has all been a chessboard. Dumbledore moving the players, okay? He goes through, well, just before he goes through to meet the person he meets, Hermione runs up to Harry, gives him a big hug. And he's like, Hermione, he's 11 years old, girls, you. Harry, you're a great wizard, 287. I'm not as good as you. What's Harry thinking?
She means like smart and
She means great how? Like Ollivander used it. We must expect great things from you, Harry. What's he doing? He's going to take on, he thinks, Snape. Okay? Is Snape a slouch from what we know of him? Not at all. Okay? Hermione, me, books and cleverness. In other words, anybody can do this stuff. Okay, it might take you a little bit longer, Harry, but you can do it, believe me. There are more important things. Friendship, bravery. That's what she's saying, why Harry is great. What should Harry say in response? You're great too, Hermione. Without she and Ron, Harry never would have gotten this far. It's kind of like with the Lord of the Rings, you know. You have the Fellowship of the Ring, why? How far would Harry, Ron, Frodo get on his own? He probably wouldn't have made it to Farmer Maggots. Literally, if he didn't have the others. He definitely wouldn't have made it to Mount Doom. Probably wouldn't have made it to Rivendell. Okay? Both authors are saying, we need our friends. We need our support groups, so to speak. So, Harry, you drink first. You're sure which is which, right? She says positive, okay? So, she takes a long drink. Harry goes through. It was Quirrell. You? Me. I thought Snape. Severus? 288. Yes, Severus does seem the type, doesn't he? What does he mean by that? What have we readers been led to believe from the beginning when we first see Snape in the Potions Master chapter to now?
That he's like evil.
He's evil. He's as Ron would probably put it, he's an evil, rotten git. Okay? I have no idea what that British git means. Probably jerk. They use a different word, which is not like jerk. It has dirty connotations. He fits the type. What's meant by the type? He's always dressed in black. Well, most of the witches and wizards are. It's the color of their robes. What else? Sallow skin, hooked pointy nose, and he treats Harry like a bag of rocks. Okay? But Snape tried to kill me. No. I tried to kill you. When? Quidditch match. Snape's sitting there muttering under his breath. Okay? He's trying to save me. What should that tell Harry?
Snape doesn't hate you.
Snape doesn't hate you. Well, Quirrell's going to kind of undercut that in a moment. So he goes on and talks about the troll. When did the troll come in? When did Quirrell release the troll? Halloween. Significance?
That's when Harry's parents died.
Nice little parallel there. Did Quirrell know that? Did Quirrell know that it was Halloween? Yes. Everybody knows except for Harry probably, when the Potters were killed. Okay? So Harry's looking at the mirror. He hears Quirrell talking back and forth. I see the stone. I'm presenting it to my master, but where is it? Harry struggles because he's got ropes tying him. Snape always seemed to hate me so much. 290. Oh, yeah, he does. Heavens, yes. He can't stand you, boy. Why? Why does Snape hate Harry? Because he hated his father. Is that good or bad? Is that a positive characteristic? Because you didn't get along with someone's father, you're therefore going to hate the kid? Is it realistic? Yeah. Okay? They loathed each other, but he never wanted you dead. So he'll beat up on you. He'll mistreat you. Okay? So, Harry, I heard you sobbing. I thought Snape. My master sometimes has to be harsh on him. 291. Harry, you mean he was there in the classroom? He is with me wherever I go. I met him when I traveled around the world. A foolish young man I was then, full of ridiculous ideas about good and evil. What are those ridiculous ideas about good and evil? Louder?
That there is good
That there is good
and evil.
and evil. That's the ridiculous ideas.
Villains always say there is no good and evil, there's only power.
Finish the quote. You had it perfect. The rest of the quote is, in those too weak to seek it. There is no good and evil. There is only power, and those too weak to seek it. Notice it's not. There is no good and evil. There is only power, and those strong enough to wield it. Those too weak to seek it means what?
Anyone can look for it.
Kind of. Think of the title of this course. The renunciation of power. Those who renounce power are what? Those too weak to seek it. Okay, this notion of good, evil, and power that he's talking about, this comes straight from German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, 19th century. Died, if I remember correctly, when he was 56, died in an insane asylum. Literally went bonkers. I think because of my spiritual, philosophical convictions, he went bonkers because his ideology made him crazy. Okay? He wrote several things, one of which, Beyond Good and Evil, that is going above, going over ideas of good and evil, and this talks about power in seeking it. He rails in all of his stuff against Christianity because he said it's the religion of the weak. Why? Christianity is named after Christ, okay? Who was what? So weak, what did he do?
He died.
On a cross. The most horrific kind of death the Romans could come up with. Ultimate weakness, okay? So, he came up with the idea, Friedrich Nietzsche came up with the idea of the Übermensch, the overman, popularized without the Nietzschean connotations, Superman. Not the guy in tights with the big S, but kind of the guy in tights with the big S. The Übermensch, the Superman, was someone who was not bound by everyday common morality and laws. This was a person whose inner greatness suggested, I can do what I want. A great example of this character in literature. Character of Raskolnikov in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. A guy who commits what he thinks is the perfect crime. And he commits it because he thinks he is above everybody else and he can do it and not get caught. Okay? I won't say anything else about it. Read it. Crime and Punishment. I kind of go back and forth. I think it's one of the great, if not the greatest novel ever written, in terms of its structure, its theme, etc. Dostoevsky's very good. Nietzsche also said, God is dead, and we killed him. And what he means by that is we no longer have a need for God, because 19th century humanity thought we've arrived at a place in our evolution, we can solve all of our problems, we can overcome all of our ills. Okay? He died in 1900. The turning to the 20th century. That century was labeled the progressive century. There was a journal, a magazine that came out. The progressive century is also called the Christian century. It was thought that in the 20th century, humanity would arrive at a level of consciousness, let's say, that war would be obsolete, that we would overcome poverty, hunger, racism, prejudice. And within 14 years of the progressive century and the Christian century, we get what? The Great War. Isn't called World War I until later. Or the war to end all wars. And then within 20 years of the end of that, we get World War II, in which case the first one now is called World War I. And what did the 20th century see? Just constant warfare. World War II, Korea, Vietnam. I mean, relatively, not even 15 years between Vietnam and Gulf War I. Plus you had Grenada, other things, okay? It's this ideology that gives rise to Hitler's ideology, okay? The idea of the master race, the Aryan race. So, Lord Voldemort showed me how wrong I was. There is no good and evil, there is only power, and those too weak to seek it. All right? Yeah, I mentioned that here. So, Harry talks with Voldemort. Voldemort has him unwrap the turban. And Voldemort knows Harry gets the stone. Notice, by the way, when Harry gets the stone, how it happens. Because I've kind of just recently been thinking about this. Haven't totally figured it out. He sees himself holding the stone. He sees himself put the stone in his pocket, pulls it back out, puts it in again, and now Harry has the stone in his pocket. What is Harry seeing? This gets back to, what is Harry seeing when he sees all of his family? Well, we'll answer that question maybe when we get to the end of book 4. So, Voldemort talks to Harry, says he has form only when, sinuses are going crazy. Only when what? When he has a host that he can attach to. Now that kind of makes it sound like he's a parasite. But parasites have form. A flea or a tick, what? Has a body. Voldemort doesn't have a body unless he can find someone who will take him. So what does he have if he doesn't have a body? What is speaking? Body and, the other day I'd written up over here, I didn't talk about it in this class, matter or materiality, immaterial, and spirituality, right? Rowling kind of suggests throughout the course of the novels that the world is made up of two things. This stuff and stuff that we can't see. Not like air. We can't see air, but we know it's there because all of us right now are breathing. Some of you kind of feel like maybe you'd rather die than go on. What does that mean? There is a material world and an unseen or spiritual world. And they're pretty distinct, pretty different. Okay? We're going to see in book 5, they're not. That is, the world we see around us is superimposed on this other world. And what we're going to see in part of book 5, but more so in book 6 and 7, when things are happening in this other world, which I've kind of labeled the spiritual or immaterial world, or the muggle, the wizarding world, when things are happening there, it can bleed into this world. All right? It's a very old idea that there are two sides of the world and that they influence each other. All right? So, what does Voldemort tell Harry about his parents? Top of 294.
You meet the same end as your parents, and they beg you for mercy.
Don't be a fool. Better save your own life and join me. Harry said before they went into through the trap door, I'll never turn to the dark side. And I emphasized he's never been asked to. Save yourself. Don't be like your parents, or you'll meet the same end as your parents. That is almost verbatim what Malfoy said. Does Malfoy have a, hidden secret telecom to Voldemort? No. So why does he say it? No idea. We are never told, I'll give something away, in all 7 books, we are never told that Voldemort invited James and Lily, come join my side. The 3 of us together will be like a trinity of evil, rule. It's not there. So why does he say it here? It's never said anywhere else in any other books. Harry is never asked to join the dark side. Okay? In fact, we're going to hear Dumbledore say, there's a reason why you've never even been tempted to. Kind of like other than here. They died begging for mercy. Okay? Voldemort, how touching. I value bravery. Your parents were brave. Killed your father first. He put up a courageous fight. But your mother needn't have died. She was trying to protect you. Give me the stone unless you want her to have died in vain. Okay? Several things there. He said, they died begging me for mercy. But then he says, your parents were brave. They put up a good fight. Those two statements cannot be true. If you are killed begging for mercy, you're not putting up a good fight. It's just, your father was courageous. Your mother died what? Trying to protect you. So here's Harry in his little crib, and the implication is like, Lily's here, Voldemort's here, coming to Harry. What does Lily do? No, leave my son alone. No, what does she do? She gets in front of him. You want to protect somebody, what do you make yourself in front of the thing that's attacking? Whether it's a person or like an animal. You make yourself as big as possible to try to make that other thing think, uh-oh, it's big, dangerous, back off. How do you make yourself as big as possible? You put your arms up. What has she just formed? Cross. Okay? This is important. This gets to, I think, why she wouldn't answer the question to the journalist, how does your Christianity inform your work? Okay? He does tell us, she died what? Trying to protect you. Okay? Harry defeats Quirrell, passes out in the process. All right? He wakes up, he sees gold, there's Dumbledore over him. Harry starts going about the stone. He's like, don't worry about the stone. Stone's safe, etc. Harry asks, how long have I been out? 3 days. Why 3 days? Where do they start out? They're on the 3rd floor. They go through the trapdoor. They fall several feet. In fact, I think at one place they say that it's miles. Not literally. They fall, and they're now what? Underground. When Harry wakes up, where is he? He's back above ground. What metaphorically, what psychoanalytically, C.G. Jung would say, has just happened. Harry has had a death, a travel in the underworld, and a rebirth experience. 3 days. Good Friday, Saturday, Sunday, rebirth. It's resurrection. It's death and resurrection. What is Harry's wand? It's holly. Okay? It's evergreen. It can't be killed because it's always living. All right? The phoenix, death and rebirth. So, they keep talking. Dumbledore says, when Harry says, I thought you'd be too late. He says, I feared I might be. You nearly were. I couldn't have kept him off the stone. Dumbledore, not the stone, dear boy. The stone's not important. Dumbledore says, the effort involved nearly killed you. Mostly dead, like Princess Bride, but not fully dead. I was afraid it had killed you. The stone's been destroyed. What about the Flamels? Nicholas Flamel, your friend. Dumbledore, 297. You did do the thing properly. So Harry did the thing properly. But why does Dumbledore say you did do? Why is the did there? Because you don't say you doed the thing properly, right? You need that past tense to go with it. Why else, though? It's emphatic. Dumbledore is saying, I knew you would do it, but what more importantly, you did it the right way. What does he mean by that? Harry, you opened a book. You researched. You looked it up. Okay? So, Harry, but they're going to die. 2 minutes. I don't know that I can do this a little bit. So, Dumbledore says, to someone young like you, it probably is incredible. But to Nicholas and Perenelle, it's like going to bed after a very, very long day. What's the longest you've stayed awake for? 24 hours? 30? 36? I've been awake, I think the longest was about 36. It was one of my drives from California to Covenant College on Lookout Mountain, Tennessee. Lookout Mountain, Georgia. Where I did my undergraduate, completed my undergraduate. between semesters, I drive back and home. Back from Covenant to San Jose, California, nonstop. It's about 2,400 miles. It's a lot of no-dos and a lot of Coke. The kind you drink, not the other kind, okay? And I would arrive, just wired like crazy. It's that kind of tiredness. After all, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. Death is not what? Something to be feared. Okay? Crap. We don't have time to even do the rest of this. Okay. So here's what I'm going to have to do. And I did this with my first class too. I'm going to include a link, probably 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, to the end of this book, a lecture. Okay? Then I'm going to include a video lecture or lectures for Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban that I want you to watch sometime over the break. Okay? Somewhere between 3 to 4 total lectures, plus the 10 minutes for this one. There won't be any quizzes over break. I'll have quizzes for Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban. For the week when we get back, we need to start Goblet of Fire on Tuesday when we get back. Because if we don't, unless you don't care about getting to book 7, if we don't, we won't get to book 7. And I think you're going to want to get to book 7, especially for those of you who are Harry Potter fans. Okay? There is a quiz for this, which is due tonight, I believe. Okay? So make sure you get that one done. All right, have a good break. Hopefully you've got good plans.